Why strong souls are born into toxic families. Carl Jung's view on trauma and spiritual wisdom. Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. These words by Khalil Gibran remind us that our deepest wounds often carry the seeds of our greatest strength. In today's video on spiritual wisdom, we explore a profound truth through the lens of Carl Jung's insights, why the strongest souls are often born into toxic families. This isn't just psychology, it's spiritual awakening. If you've ever wondered why your path was filled with hardship, or why you felt like the black sheep in your own home, this message is for you. As you listen, reflect on how your pain may have been the catalyst for your transformation. Comment below, "I am rising from the fire," if this resonates with your journey. Let's begin this soul-deep exploration together. 1. Pain becomes the catalyst for awakening. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And for those born into toxic families, this truth becomes their initiation. The suffering of childhood rejection, emotional neglect, being silenced or controlled is not random cruelty, but a sacred fire designed to awaken. Sensitive souls are not broken by this chaos. They are pushed inward into a spiritual exile where the noise of the world fades and something divine begins to stir. It is in that silence, that isolation, that the first spark of clarity appears. Pain does not burn them into nothingness. It burns away illusion. It strips away false identities and forces them to confront the truth. While others find comfort in conformity, these souls begin to see through masks, through empty words, through performance. The trauma becomes their teacher, shaping their emotional radar, refining their intuition, and deepening their empathy into something that borders on the mystical. A child constantly told to be quiet learns to speak with the divine instead. A boy who feels invisible sharpens a vision that cuts through ego and illusion. These outcomes are not coincidences. They are the hidden curriculum of pain. Jung knew that the path to wholeness runs straight through the shadows we try to avoid. And for those who walk that path early, life demands a different kind of strength. Without ever using the word trauma, they begin to break ancestral patterns. They are ridiculed for their emotions, dismissed for their insights, and alienated for their boundaries, yet all of it becomes training. Their sensitivity mocked by the world becomes their compass. Their ability to feel deeply while choosing wisely isn't weakness, it's transformation. What looks like fragility is actually alchemy, the transmutation of suffering into wisdom, of scars into symbols of survival. Without emotional safety, they are forced to build a sanctuary within. That inner refuge becomes their temple of truth, a place where clarity is forged not by comfort, but by necessity. They learn to read a room by energy, not by words. They sense lies the moment they enter. This isn't magic, it's hyper-awareness. In dysfunctional homes, the soul isn't nurtured, it's tested. But the testing becomes the forge where spiritual power is formed. The very chaos meant to break them becomes the crucible that shapes them into beings of rare depth. People who see through darkness and carry light. And as the pain carves them hollow, something sacred begins to pour in. They stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What is this awakening me to?" That question shifts everything. No longer trapped by old wounds, they begin responding from wisdom. No longer defined by their trauma, they are guided by purpose. Pain is no longer a prison. It is proof that they were born to walk a different path. Spiritual awakening is not a blissful escape. It is a brutal, beautiful return to the self. It is the moment they realize the darkness did not destroy them, it purified them. What once silenced their truth now fuels their voice. And that voice, born from pain, not perfection, becomes a channel for healing. It carries not only personal power, but generational wisdom. The soul that was once forced to endure now becomes the soul that leads, and in doing so, redefines what it means to be strong. If your pain has been your teacher, your guide, or your awakening, comment below. I rise through the pain to affirm your journey and inspire others to embrace their own spiritual growth. 2. You're the black sheep because you're the most spiritually awake. In toxic families, the one who feels like an outsider is usually the one who sees most clearly. The so-called black sheep is often the one who refuses to stay silent, who challenges generational patterns, who is emotionally attuned to everything unspoken. They're misunderstood, labeled as difficult, dramatic, or too sensitive, but that sensitivity is not a flaw. It's spiritual intelligence in action. Carl Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, often begins in discomfort. And for many, that discomfort is rooted in the family. You weren't placed in a broken system by accident. You were born into it because you carry the strength to transform it. You were chosen to question what others avoid, to feel what others suppress, and to heal what others deny. In every toxic dynamic, there's usually one soul who says, "This ends with me." That soul is not the problem. It's the pattern breaker. You may feel isolated, but that isolation is part of your awakening. The shame you carry is not yours. It's inherited. And when you begin to see clearly, to speak honestly, and to set boundaries, the system around you fights to keep you small. Not because you're wrong, but because you threaten the illusion. There's a woman who always knew something was off in her family. The smiles felt forced. The silence felt heavy. When she began therapy, others called her too emotional. When she refused to tolerate manipulation, they said she was being selfish. But Carl Jung reminds us, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Her healing made others uncomfortable, but it wasn't about them. Her truth was never too much. Their denial was just too loud. She wasn't rebelling. She was remembering who she was before the conditioning. Strong souls are sent into wounded lineages to break the loop. They're called to alchemize chaos into clarity. But this role is not glamorous. It's painful. You carry wounds that weren't yours, and you still find the courage to love. You've been told you're the problem, when in fact, you're the mirror. Carl Jung believed that when we confront the shadow of our family's hidden pain, we begin the real work of the soul. That work often starts with grief. The grief of knowing you may never receive the love you deserved. But from that grief comes freedom. And from that freedom, wisdom. You don't need to fix anyone. You don't need to convince them to change. Your only task is to stay rooted in your truth. The cycle is broken, not by shouting, but by choosing peace. Not by revenge, but by rising above the dysfunction without guilt. You're not abandoning your family when you create distance. You're honoring your spirit. The fact that you feel deeply, question everything, and refuse to shrink, that's not rebellion. That's your awakening. If this message resonates with your journey as the so-called black sheep, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your truth in the comments below. Let's keep awakening together. Your voice matters more than you know. 3. Toxic families are not a mistake. They are a spiritual assignment. Strong, spiritually gifted souls are not born into toxic families by accident. They are assigned to them by the soul's higher intelligence. These families, marked by dysfunction, emotional volatility, or neglect, serve as the crucible in which inner strength, deep compassion, and spiritual vision are forged. Carl Jung's concept of individuation teaches us that true selfhood doesn't emerge from comfort. It is born from the friction between the soul and its surrounding shadows. To become whole, one must first confront what is broken. In many cases, the family becomes the first place where the soul is cracked open. The child who sees too much, feels too deeply, or speaks truths no one else dares to voice becomes the black sheep, the scapegoat, the misunderstood one. Yet within this painful misalignment lies the spark of transformation. These individuals are not meant to be absorbed into the dysfunction. They are meant to expose it, heal it, and rise beyond it. While others may be crushed by the weight of generational pain, the spiritually gifted learn to alchemize it. The suffering they endure isn't just personal, it's ancestral. Many of them are carrying not just their own wounds, but the buried grief, unspoken shame, and suppressed truths of those who came before them. They are sent not to repeat cycles, but to break them. And in this process, they develop spiritual muscles that no easy life could ever build. They learn to observe without absorbing, to feel without drowning, to speak without fear. Their trauma becomes a temple, a place where wisdom is carved into the bones. Spiritual wisdom of this kind can't be handed down. It has to be lived through. It's learned in moments of silence when no one comes to comfort you. It's earned by standing in truth when everyone else denies it. It's shaped by walking away from what's familiar to protect your peace. Over time, these souls become masters of intuition, clarity, and inner power. They no longer seek validation because they've learned how to trust their own knowledge. Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, but that privilege often begins with pain. The pain of not fitting in. The pain of feeling unloved in the place that was supposed to nurture you. The pain of carrying emotions no one acknowledges. But it's this very pain that cracks the ego and awakens the soul. And once awakened, the soul can never return to sleep. It begins to seek truth over comfort, healing over harmony, and growth over approval. The toxic family, then, becomes the unexpected doorway to liberation. It teaches the spiritually gifted how to protect their light, how to discern manipulation from love, and how to transform isolation into sovereignty. These individuals emerge not as victims of their past, but as living proof that the darkest soil can grow the most radiant flowers. They do not just survive, they lead. They do not just heal, they awaken others. And in doing so, they fulfill the sacred assignment their soul chose long before they arrived. Have you ever reflected on your family as a spiritual assignment? If so, share how it shaped your growth in the comments below. Your story could inspire someone else. If not, comment, "I'm ready to see the lesson," and join us on this journey of healing and awakening. 4. Your healing threatens their illusions. Your healing is a spiritual revolution, not just a personal choice. In families where dysfunction has been normalized, where silence and denial are survival tools, your decision to choose truth over tradition is seen not as courage, but as rebellion. When you start breaking those cycles, when you stop apologizing for things you didn't do, when you refuse to laugh at jokes that carry pain masked as humor, your very presence becomes threatening, not because you've become unkind, but because your clarity exposes their confusion. Your boundaries reveal their manipulation, and your self-respect makes their self-abandonment impossible to ignore. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And that's exactly why your growth will be met with resistance. They don't hate your healing. They fear what it reflects back to them. The pain they've buried, the dreams they gave up, the lives they never truly lived. You're not the problem. You're just no longer playing the role they assigned you. You've stepped out of the script, and now they don't know how to perform without you. Whether you were the fixer, the peacekeeper, or the emotional sponge, your absence from those roles feels like abandonment to them, but it's liberation for you. Your evolution disturbs their illusion. And so, they may label you as cold, distant, ungrateful, or too spiritual, but those labels are just armor to protect them from looking within. You've become the mirror they didn't ask for, and every boundary you set whispers, you can choose differently. And that message is too heavy for those still addicted to their own suffering. There's a story of a woman who didn't confront her family with rage. She simply stopped explaining herself. She chose silence, peace, and self-respect. Slowly, they pulled away, but in that space, she found a deeper freedom than she'd ever known. Carl Jung called this individuation becoming whole, by embracing the parts of yourself you were once taught to hide. That kind of wholeness doesn't require revenge or confrontation. It simply requires truth. The more you heal, the more your very existence becomes a contradiction to everything they've accepted as normal. Your growth disrupts the hierarchy. Your peace becomes louder than their chaos. And while they may try to reel you back in with guilt, with distance, with silence, it's not love they're offering. It's control. Because your change threatens their stagnation. It's easier to call you difficult than to admit they've been emotionally unavailable. Easier to shame you for changing than to examine their refusal to grow. Your journey doesn't just break cycles, it reveals them. And that makes you dangerous in the best way. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming your true self will often feel like loss. You will be misunderstood, resented, excluded. But that's because you're no longer playing small to make others comfortable. You're not abandoning them. You're choosing yourself. And in doing so, you're showing others what freedom looks like, even if they're not ready to follow. Your healing is not betrayal. It's sacred clarity. If this message resonated with your soul, drop a comment of truth. My healing is sacred. I will not dim my light to comfort others. 5. Spiritual immunity is forged through chaos. Living in a toxic family doesn't just leave scars, it awakens something fierce and unbreakable inside you. When affection is withheld, when your presence is constantly criticized or ignored, and when your emotions are seen as burdens, your soul doesn't wither, and it begins to sharpen. Not through comfort, but through confrontation. not through nurturing, but through necessity. You stop chasing validation from people who can't even face their own truth, and you start listening to a voice within that refuses to be silenced. The chaos around you becomes the forge, and in that fire, your soul is not broken, it is born. Pain becomes a mentor, rejection becomes redirection, and dysfunction becomes the backdrop against which your inner clarity shines. You begin to understand that not everyone who claims to love you is capable of honoring you. Some are battling demons they refuse to name, and your light simply exposes what they can't confront in themselves. But instead of dimming your flame, you build invisible armor, not to shut the world out, but to protect the truth of who you are. As Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that journey often begins in the loneliest of places. In families where lies are dressed as love and silence is mistaken for peace, you become the one who sees through the performance. You feel the tension behind the smiles. You sense the grief that no one talks about. You are blamed, labeled, and misunderstood, but you are also the carrier of truth. And that role, painful as it is sacred. The scapegoat becomes the seer, the one who disrupts illusions and brings hidden wounds into the light. This is the beginning of spiritual wisdom, not handed down through comfort, but earned through endurance. You learn to separate love from manipulation, connection from control, empathy from emotional slavery. You stop trying to awaken those who would rather stay asleep. You stop explaining your intuition to those who have no intention of understanding it. You grow silent, but not small. Boundaries become your quiet revolution. No longer will you serve as the emotional sponge for those who refuse to heal. You understand now that abandoning yourself to please others is not compassion, it's betrayal. You choose truth, even when it disrupts the illusion of harmony. You choose peace, not the kind that's dependent on external approval, but the kind that comes from living aligned with your soul. That's spiritual immunity, the power to stand in your truth without needing to be understood, the strength to guard your soul without becoming hard. You rise above the noise, not to escape it, but because you've outgrown it. You don't need to retaliate. Your healing speaks louder than vengeance. Your growth becomes your quiet rebellion, your legacy. While others stay trapped in generational cycles, you become the breaker. Not just for yourself, but for those who come after. Because this is how strong souls are made, not in the safety of comfort, but in the sharp contrast of pain. Not by being protected, but by learning how to protect themselves. And what they carry forward is not resentment, but a deep, sacred wisdom that no book can teach and no trauma can erase. Do you feel that chaos has strengthened your spirit? If so, declare it boldly in the comments. My soul is forged in fire, and I rise. 6. You must use spiritual tools to survive and evolve. You were not placed in a painful environment to suffer. You were placed there to awaken. When love is scarce and chaos is constant, the soul either breaks or begins to remember its origin. And for strong souls like yours, remembrance begins with reclaiming your connection to the divine. The spiritual umbilical cord is not just a metaphor. It's your energetic lifeline. It's the invisible thread that connects you to unconditional love, even when no one around you knows how to give it. In moments of loneliness or rejection, close your eyes and visualize this golden cord extending from your heart into the heart of God, Source, or the universe, whatever name you give to the highest love. Feel it feeding you, reminding you that you are not alone, not forgotten, not unloved. You've always been connected to something greater than the chaos around you. But love alone is not enough when you're surrounded by pain. That's where shadow awareness comes in. Carl Jung taught us that people don't just act out their darkness, they project it. If you've been criticized, shamed, or blamed for things that never made sense, it's likely you were absorbing someone else's unhealed wounds. Shadow awareness allows you to step back from the drama and see clearly. Their anger is not yours to fix. Their pain is not your burden to carry. You begin to understand that many people fear your light because it exposes the parts of themselves they've tried to ignore. And so they attack, not because you are wrong, but because you remind them of the healing they've avoided. When you stop internalizing their projections, you reclaim your clarity and your spiritual awakening deepens. Then comes the sacred tool of boundaries without guilt. In toxic families, boundaries are often seen as betrayal. But the truth is, boundaries are your soul's way of saying, I choose peace. You don't owe anyone access to your spirit just because you share blood. Choosing distance is not a sign of hate. It's a declaration of self-respect. You can still love them, pray for them, and wish them healing from afar. The guilt you feel is not your intuition, it's conditioning. And when you break that conditioning, you don't become cold, you become conscious. Protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's sacred. It's how you create space for growth, for joy, for truth to return. These tools are not luxury, they are survival. And more than that, they are transformation. When you apply them consistently, you stop asking, why was I born into this? And start seeing, this is where I rise. You begin to understand that spiritual awakening doesn't happen in temples, it happens in tension. In choosing love over resentment. In walking away without apology. In standing firm in your truth, even if it makes you the outsider. Because sometimes, the black sheep is just the family's first awakened soul. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom on how to protect your energy, heal deeply, and evolve with intention. Your growth isn't optional, it's sacred. 7. Your journey turns pain into purpose. Your suffering was never meaningless. It was the sacred forge that shaped you. In the depths of dysfunction, where love came with conditions and peace felt like a distant dream, you were undergoing spiritual training. Every tear, every rejection, every silent cry for understanding was carving you into someone who could see beyond illusion. Carl Jung believed that our true self emerges not in comfort, but through the confrontation of shadow. So when your life began in chaos, it wasn't a cosmic mistake. It was the beginning of your initiation. You were never just the black sheep. You were the seed of consciousness planted in barren soil. The emotional wounds you carried in childhood were not just scars, they were gateways. Once healed, they became portals of wisdom, silent libraries of human experience. That hypersensitivity you were shamed for is now your intuition. That deep pain you once hid has become a map, showing others how to navigate their own. And that loneliness, it taught you how to hear the voice of your own soul. Spiritual wisdom doesn't arrive wrapped in clarity. It comes in the form of questions no one else is asking, in the quiet strength of those who've suffered silently and still choose to rise. You were not given a toxic family to punish you. You were placed there to awaken, to break the generational trance of pain, denial, and silence. While others repeated cycles, you began to question them. While others avoided truth, you started embodying it. You didn't just survive dysfunction, you transmuted it. Now, your presence is power. Not because you demand attention, but because your energy speaks before you do. People feel it, your depth, your calm, your knowing. You became the one who listens without judgment, who sees what's unspoken, who holds space for others, because you once needed someone to hold space for you. And that transformation didn't come from external praise. It came from walking through fire alone and emerging whole. You are not late. You are in divine rhythm. The pain was not the end, it was the path. And you, the strong soul born into toxicity, have become something extraordinary. You no longer just carry a story, you carry medicine. And in a world starving for truth, your healing is a revolution. You are not behind, you are becoming. To affirm your transformation and honor the purpose behind your pain, comment below. My journey has meaning. Your story holds power. Let it remind others that healing is never wasted. If this message resonates, like, share, and subscribe for more insights on turning wounds into wisdom. Thank you for spending this time with us on Spiritual Wisdom. If this message spoke to your soul, remember you were never placed in that family by mistake. There is deep purpose in your strength, your sensitivity, and your journey. Let this be a reminder. Your story holds power, and your healing is part of your sacred mission. If you found value in today's video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming insights into the soul, trauma, and transformation. Your journey matters, and we're here to walk it with you. Carl Jung's synchronicity, meaningful patterns in life. Synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. Carl Jung. Have you ever noticed a perfect coincidence like thinking of someone just before they call, or spotting the same symbol or number over and over again? These moments aren't accidents. They may be signs of a deeper order trying to communicate with you. In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll dive into Carl Jung's groundbreaking concept of synchronicity, the mysterious way life reveals meaningful patterns that guide us toward inner growth and higher awareness. As you watch, ask yourself, what hidden messages might the universe be sending you? If you've ever experienced these strange yet powerful alignments, share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear it. Let's explore how recognizing synchronicity can open the door to personal transformation and a more spiritually attuned life. 1. Collective unconscious and quantum connection. Carl Jung believed that human beings are deeply connected not only to each other, but to a shared, invisible layer of consciousness he called the collective unconscious. This vast field is not a product of personal experience alone. It is a storehouse of ancient memories, archetypes, and patterns that shape how we think, dream, and even experience the world around us. When you feel an unexplainable pull toward a symbol, a person, or a situation, it may be because that connection is being activated not from your conscious mind, but from something much deeper, something inherited, collective, and profoundly real. What makes Jung's theory so fascinating is how closely it mirrors discoveries in modern quantum physics. In particular, the observer effect, the idea that observing a quantum event can actually influence its outcome, suggests that consciousness isn't just a passive witness to reality, but an active participant. Jung saw this not as a coincidence, but as confirmation that our inner world and the outer universe are intertwined. Through what he called synchronicity, we begin to witness events in the outer world that mirror our inner states, events that seem random on the surface but carry profound, often spiritual significance. These synchronicities are not just charming oddities. They are energetic alignments between our inner reality and the unfolding universe. Imagine thinking of someone you haven't spoken to in years, only to receive a message from them that very day. Or feeling lost in life and suddenly encountering a book, a song, or a stranger's words that speak directly to your heart. These are not coincidences to be dismissed. According to Jung, they are evidence that we are living within a meaningful and intelligent system, one that speaks to us through symbols, patterns, and timing. This is where spiritual wisdom comes into play. The ability to perceive these moments not as random, but as invitations to awaken. There is a spiritual art to noticing. Synchronicities rarely arrive with fanfare. They are subtle, almost whisper-like. But once we begin to pay attention, the frequency of these meaningful patterns increases. It's as if life starts speaking a language we were always meant to understand. The more you trust it, the more it unfolds. It's not about superstition or magical thinking. It's about tuning in to an intelligence that works beneath the surface, often unnoticed by the rational mind. Take, for instance, a young man who feels unfulfilled at work but can't explain why. One day, while scrolling mindlessly online, he stumbles across a video that speaks directly to his inner frustration. That same week, a stranger at a cafe begins talking about making bold career changes. Then, his childhood friend calls to ask if he wants to collaborate on a passion project they once dreamed about. Each event might seem isolated, but together, they form a coherent pattern that reflects his shifting internal energy. The outer world begins to mirror the truth he has not yet fully acknowledged. Jung's insight was that these patterns are not random. They are meaningful coincidences, guided by an invisible thread connecting the personal psyche to the collective unconscious. And quantum theory offers a bridge that makes these experiences more than just metaphors. The reality we live in may be far more interactive than we've ever imagined. When we observe, we influence. When we feel deeply, we shift outcomes. Our awareness is not separate from the world, it is shaping it. To walk with this understanding is to walk with reverence. It's to recognize that your emotions, your thoughts, your quiet longings, they matter. They don't just echo in your mind. They ripple through a field of energy that responds with alignment. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that when we live from this space of presence and awareness, life doesn't just happen to us, it responds to us. That response often comes in the form of synchronicities, waiting for us to notice and follow their trail. Through the lens of Jung and quantum connection, we begin to see that the universe is not silent. It's alive, intelligent, and deeply invested in our growth. Synchronicities are not interruptions in the flow. They are the flow revealing itself. If you believe that your mind is more than just a receiver, and that your thoughts can shape the world around you, comment below. I align with the collective field. Let's explore the mystery of synchronicity and the quantum mind together. 2. Jung's awakening and inner vision, a childhood of mystery and premonition. Carl Jung was no stranger to the mysteries of the mind. As a child, he experienced powerful visions that left him unsettled and deeply curious. While other children played and lived in the comfort of the known world, Jung found himself haunted by strange inner images, waves of blood crashing over cities, widespread destruction, and a deep sense of something ominous approaching. These visions were not fleeting nightmares. They returned with increasing intensity, disturbing him so much that he feared he might be going mad. Then, war broke out. World War I erupted, and Jung suddenly realized what those terrifying visions had foretold. What he had seen was not delusion, it was premonition. For the first time, he understood that his inner experiences were not symptoms of mental illness, but signals from a deeper, universal realm of the psyche. He called it the collective unconscious, a vast, hidden reservoir of images, archetypes, and knowledge shared by all of humanity. These weren't personal dreams. They were messages from something much greater, something timeless and deeply interconnected. This realization transformed the course of his life. Jung began to explore the layers of the unconscious mind with the rigor of a scientist and the reverence of a mystic. He believed the human psyche was not just a personal container of thoughts and memories. It was a gateway to spiritual truth, symbolic language, and meaningful coincidences that could reshape our understanding of reality itself. One of Jung's most profound contributions to psychology was the concept of synchronicity, the idea that certain events are connected not by cause and effect, but by meaning. These are the moments when the inner world and outer world align in ways that seem too perfect to be random. A dream that predicts an event, a book that falls off the shelf with the exact answer you needed, a chance encounter that changes your life. Modern life gives us countless examples of this. Mia, a marketing manager in her early 30s, began seeing the numbers 1111 everywhere on her phone, digital clocks, receipts. At first, she dismissed it as coincidence, but soon after, she began having vivid dreams about painting, a passion she had abandoned as a teenager. The signs kept coming, and the inner urge grew stronger. She picked up a brush again. Within months, she was exhibiting her art. Eventually, she left her corporate job to become a full-time painter. The numbers, the dreams weren't random. They were synchronistic breadcrumbs leading her back to her purpose. Carl Jung saw synchronicities as moments of deep alignment between our soul's truth and the flow of life. They bypass logic and speak the language of the unconscious symbol, feeling, instinct. To Jung, these moments weren't mystical fluff. They were psychological facts with spiritual significance. He believed that when we pay attention to them, we begin to live more consciously, more meaningfully, and in greater harmony with who we really are. Our culture often teaches us to dismiss the unseen, to ignore dreams, deny gut feelings, and chalk up patterns to coincidence. But Jung's life reminds us that wisdom often comes in subtle forms, that visions, no matter how strange, may carry truth, that patterns repeating in our lives may not be meaningless. They may be messages we're meant to receive. The psyche is not just reacting to the world, it's in dialogue with it. And the more we listen, the more we realize that life isn't just happening to us. It's responding to us, mirroring us, guiding us. This is the heart of Carl Jung's legacy. Not to fear what is mysterious, but to walk toward it, to treat dreams, synchronicities, and symbols not as illusions, but as invitations. Because somewhere beneath the noise of daily life, a deeper current is always flowing. And if we dare to follow it, it may just lead us home to ourselves. Have you ever had a dream or vision that felt like more than just imagination, like a message from something deeper? If so, share your story in the comments below. Let's learn from each other's inner experiences. If not, but you're open to exploring your own unconscious, comment, "I'm ready to see within," so we can begin this journey into the hidden realms of the psyche together. 3. Synchronicity and the unus mundus, the one unified reality. Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity reveals that life is not governed solely by logic or cause and effect, but by a deeper, invisible order. He believed that the inner world of thoughts, dreams, and emotions is intimately connected to the outer world of events, even when no clear causal link exists. This idea is rooted in the ancient notion of the unus mundus, a single unified reality from which both the psyche and the physical universe emerge. In this realm, time and space lose their grip, and meaning takes the lead. This is where synchronicity lives, in the subtle, poetic conversation between your soul and the unfolding of life. Jung saw synchronicity as more than just coincidence. It's the manifestation of a hidden pattern that connects your inner experiences with the outer world. Just like the alchemical saying, "As above, so below," synchronicities reflect a deeper order in which everything mirrors everything else. It's a moment when your soul's whisper is echoed by the world around you. These events often arrive when you're at a crossroads, seeking clarity or navigating uncertainty. Rather than pushing for answers, you become receptive, and that openness aligns you with something greater. The ancient Taoist symbol of yin and yang beautifully expresses this principle. Two seemingly opposite forces in perfect balance, complementing each other, not contradicting. Jung recognized that the same balance exists between your conscious thoughts and unconscious wisdom, between the visible and the invisible, between reason and intuition. When you experience synchronicity, it's often because both sides are finally aligned, and something previously hidden can now rise into awareness. These moments don't follow logic, they follow meaning. Think about the times when you were deeply pondering a personal decision, and life began to echo your thoughts in the most unexpected ways. You think of someone, and they call. You dream of water, and the next day it rains just as a major emotional breakthrough arrives. These are not accidents. These are messages, mirrors, confirmations that your inner state is resonating with a larger cosmic rhythm. This is not fantasy. It is a lived expression of spiritual wisdom, showing you that you are never as separate or alone as you think. Jung believed that when you begin to notice these meaningful coincidences, your awareness sharpens, your intuition strengthens, and your relationship with life shifts. You start living in a more symbolic world, where events don't just happen, they speak. You begin to trust the unfolding of things, even when it doesn't make sense. And in doing so, you unlock a deeper harmony between your soul and the greater whole. Life stops feeling random. It begins to feel alive, intelligent, interconnected. You stop chasing signs and begin listening for the truth. This deeper truth doesn't arrive through control, but through surrender. Synchronicities don't come when you force them. They arise when you're present enough to see them. When the ego softens and the inner world becomes quiet, the language of the universe becomes clear. It's not loud. It's not obvious. It's sacred, subtle, and deeply personal. And once you recognize that everything, your thoughts, emotions, symbols, and external events are all flowing from the same source, you begin to walk through life differently, more open, more connected, more awake. Don't forget to subscribe for more spiritual wisdom that reveals the hidden order behind life's coincidences. If you believe everything is connected and nothing is random, this is your place to explore the deeper meaning behind it all. 4. Archetypes and the power of the unconscious. Carl Jung believed that archetypes, universal psychic patterns, exist at the very core of the human psyche. These are not just symbolic images stored in the mind. They are powerful, timeless forces that shape the very fabric of our experiences, influencing how we dream, how we love, and how we make meaning out of chaos. Archetypes, like the hero, the shadow, the mother, and the wise old man, do not belong to any one culture or individual. They are ancient, collective, and embedded in our unconscious, silently guiding our decisions and reactions without us even realizing it. According to Jung, these archetypes are psychoid, meaning they exist between the inner and outer worlds, between mind and matter, between thought and event. Because they do not follow the laws of time or space, archetypes can show up in ways that feel eerie or prophetic. This explains why someone might dream about a future event before it happens, or feel an instant soul-level connection with a stranger. These experiences are not mere chance. They are deeply meaningful patterns of what Jung called synchronicities that arise when inner reality meets outer circumstance with uncanny precision. They signal that your unconscious is not only alive, but also engaged in a dynamic relationship with your life. It speaks through symbols, emotions, and intuitive insights, redirecting your path in subtle yet powerful ways. The unconscious, in Jung's view, is not passive or dormant. It has agency. It watches, remembers, and intervenes. It holds within it the seeds of your future and the keys to your healing. You may think you're in control, but often it is the unconscious that chooses what you notice, who you're drawn to, or when a crisis must erupt for your transformation to begin. As Jung famously warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is the turning point of spiritual awakening, when you realize that what happens to you is not random, but reflective. Spiritual awakening occurs when you begin to notice the hidden order in your life. It's the recognition that your recurring struggles, emotional triggers, or even chance encounters are not accidents, but invitations from the unconscious. They are messengers of truth, guiding you toward wholeness. In this light, even pain becomes sacred because it's a signal, not a punishment. It is calling you to look deeper, to decode the symbols, and to engage with the archetypes shaping your reality from beneath the surface. In this sacred process, you stop reacting blindly and start responding with awareness. You begin to track your dreams, listen to inner nudges, and pay attention to what stirs your soul. This is how the unconscious reveals its power through synchronicity, through archetypal resonance, and through moments that feel charged with purpose. When you honor these moments instead of brushing them off, something profound shifts. Your life stops feeling random and starts to feel aligned. This alignment marks the birth of spiritual wisdom and the deepening of your spiritual awakening. If this message awakens something deep within you, drop a comment below. I trust the wisdom of my unconscious. I'm guided by the archetypes within me. 5. Eastern influence, Mandalas, and alchemy. Carl Jung's encounter with the secret of the golden flower, a Taoist text rich in Eastern spiritual insight, marked a turning point in his psychological exploration. To Jung, this wasn't merely ancient philosophy, it was a map of inner transformation. The book revealed a deep understanding of the psyche's journey toward balance, something Western psychology had only begun to grasp. What captured Jung's attention most was the mandala, a sacred symbol found throughout Eastern spiritual traditions. He didn't just admire its beauty, he saw it as the mind's attempt to restore inner order through imagery. In the mandala's symmetry, Jung found the self, a totality that includes both the conscious and unconscious mind. He believed that when people were psychologically fragmented or overwhelmed, the mandala emerged spontaneously, either in dreams or drawings, as a tool for integration. These circular patterns, often filled with repeating shapes and radiating energy, were more than art. They were healing structures. They allowed the psyche to visually represent what words could not, a state of centeredness, unity, and balance. Jung understood this as a symbol of the individuation process, the path toward becoming whole. And he didn't just theorize about it. He asked his patients to draw mandalas during their deepest moments of crisis, because through that act, a deeper intelligence within them could reveal itself. Carl Jung's spiritual wisdom also led him to rediscover alchemy, but not in the literal sense of turning base metals into gold. What fascinated him was the metaphor hidden in the ancient language of alchemists. They described a process of burning, dissolving, separating, purifying, and finally, reuniting, all of which mirrored the stages of human psychological growth. Jung saw alchemy as the bridge between science, psychology, and spirituality. It provided a symbolic system for transformation, one where suffering, confusion, and emotional chaos weren't obstacles to avoid, but stages in the sacred process of becoming. He realized that the alchemist's furnace was no different from the emotional heat people feel during breakdowns, heartaches, and life changes. In modern life, we go through these transformations all the time, though we may not have the language to describe them. A painful breakup, the loss of a job, a spiritual crisis. These are moments when the ego cracks and something deeper tries to emerge. Often, we resist, distract, or shut down. But if we allow ourselves to face the discomfort, a new self begins to form, wiser, softer, and more whole. Jung believed that within every collapse was the seed of new integration, just as the alchemist believed gold could emerge from what appeared worthless. He taught that our emotions, when honored and understood, are the flames that refine us. The mandala and alchemy both taught Jung one central truth: that the path to wholeness isn't linear. It's symbolic, mysterious, and deeply personal. The symbols that arise in our dreams, the repeated patterns we notice in life, the images we're drawn to in moments of stillness, they are not random. They are messages from the unconscious, guiding us back to our essence. Jung's genius was in trusting that what ancient wisdom had long known could still apply to the modern soul. He didn't separate science from spirit or logic from intuition. He knew the soul speaks in symbols, and to become whole, we must learn to listen. So when the chaos of life overwhelms you, when clarity seems far away, remember that transformation doesn't come through avoidance, it comes through alchemy. And when you feel scattered or broken, take a blank page and draw a circle. Let that shape center you, speak to you, remind you that even in disorder, the self is seeking harmony. This is not just Carl Jung's insight. It is an invitation to recognize the spiritual intelligence already moving within you. If Jung's journey through Eastern wisdom, Mandalas, and alchemy resonates with you, take a deep breath and repeat after me. I am aligning with inner balance and divine transformation. This message has found me at the right time. 6. Real-life synchronicities. From personal events to supernatural phenomena. Carl Jung's life was filled with events that defied ordinary explanation. Moments so precise and uncanny, they could not be brushed aside as mere coincidence. In his work, he named this phenomenon synchronicity, a concept that reveals how meaningful coincidences, though lacking a clear cause and effect link, carry deep psychological and spiritual significance. One of the most startling examples came when Jung was working with a patient whose rigid rationalism resisted emotional healing. She shared a dream about a golden scarab, a symbol of rebirth. At that precise moment, a beetle resembling a scarab began tapping at the window. Jung caught it and handed it to her, breaking the walls of her skepticism. To him, this was no accident. It was a breakthrough orchestrated by a deeper intelligence, one that mirrors our inner world through the external. These events weren't isolated. Jung described many personal experiences that defied scientific logic, like the loud crack that split a wooden table in his home with no physical cause, or a bread knife that shattered into pieces without being touched. These weren't metaphors. They were actual physical manifestations tied to moments of intense emotion and psychic tension. Jung believed these incidents were the psyche's language ways the unconscious spoke through matter, bending what we perceive as solid reality to reveal something invisible. They emerged not from delusion, but from a deeper order in the universe that becomes more visible during periods of spiritual awakening. As one becomes more attuned to the symbolic nature of life, these disruptions serve as invitations, signals to pay attention, to align, to awaken. This mystical view put him at odds with Freud, who dismissed such phenomena as fantasy. Freud, ever the materialist, saw the unconscious as a vault of repressed desires and trauma. Jung, on the other hand, viewed it as sacred, an entry point to the collective unconscious, a realm where symbols, archetypes, and shared human experiences converge. Their philosophical split reflected more than differing theories. It revealed two fundamentally different ways of seeing reality. Jung stood alone in his conviction that the soul speaks in symbols, and that the world, when mirrored correctly, responds to the psyche in astonishing ways. And yet, you've likely felt this too, moments when reality bent slightly to meet your thoughts. You think of someone, and they text. You're lost, and the exact phrase you needed appears in a song, a book, a stranger's words. These are not accidents. They are moments of alignment. Synchronicity reveals that your inner world and outer world are not separate. They are dancing together, especially during times of transition, emotional upheaval, or spiritual awakening. When you start to notice these patterns, you begin to realize that life itself is not random. It's responsive. It listens. It reflects. Jung believed that synchronicities increase during psychological crises or transformation because the psyche is trying to compensate, to help you reorient. The invisible world speaks loudest when you are closest to truth. This is why many people undergoing a spiritual awakening experience a flood of signs, strange timings, and intuitive knowledge. The deeper you go into your own unconscious, the more the world around you begins to shimmer with messages. And this isn't about superstition. It's about understanding reality as symbolic and intelligent, structured in a way that supports your evolution. Einstein once said, "Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous." Jung took this seriously. For him, synchronicity was not only real, but sacred evidence that we live in a meaningful, connected universe where your journey is seen and mirrored back to you. The challenge is not whether these signs exist, but whether you are willing to notice, to listen, and to act. Because often, the sign you're waiting for isn't a thunderbolt. It's already here, tapping softly at your window. If Jung's real-life synchronicities spark something in you, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced something that defied logic? Let's explore these invisible forces together. Your story might inspire someone else. 7. How to recognize and use synchronicities for growth. Carl Jung believed that synchronicities are not mere coincidences, but powerful reflections of a deeper order at work in the universe. These events are not just surprising moments of chance. They are messages from the unconscious, nudges from the divine, guiding us toward our growth. He emphasized that with enough self-awareness, we can actively engage with these moments and uncover the spiritual wisdom they carry. Jung categorized synchronicities into 5 key types, each one aligning with a hermetic principle, reminding us that everything in the universe is connected and meaningful. Warning synchronicities are those quiet, often unsettling signs that alert us to an approaching crisis or misstep. A strange feeling of hesitation, a repeated dream, a symbolic image that unsettles your spirit. These are not to be ignored. Rooted in the principle of vibration, they remind us that everything is energy, and that the body and spirit often detect what the conscious mind cannot. Just as animals sense earthquakes before they strike, your deeper self vibrates with early knowledge. These synchronicities act like inner sirens, guiding you away from harm before it manifests. Then come confirmation synchronicities, those moments that reassure you that you are walking in alignment. You may think about pursuing a passion, and suddenly, that exact subject shows up in a podcast, a billboard, or a casual conversation. These are governed by the principle of correspondence. As within, so without. The outer world reflects your inner alignment. These are not just random affirmations. They are spiritual echoes, showing you that your energy is resonating clearly with the flow of life. Trusting these signs can boost your courage and keep you grounded on your path. Prophetic synchronicities reveal symbolic truths before they manifest. These are moments of deep vision, recurring dreams, strong intuitive impressions, or even conversations that seem to foreshadow what's to come. Linked to the principle of mentalism, they reveal how reality is shaped by mind and consciousness. These synchronicities often speak through symbols of water signaling emotional purification, fire representing rebirth, or birds symbolizing freedom. When you begin to observe the repeated appearance of a symbol, don't dismiss it. Your unconscious may be preparing you for a transformation. Manifestation, synchronicities occur when your inner work begins to ripple outward into the world. These align with the principle of cause and effect. If you've been working on self-love and start attracting respectful, nurturing people into your life, that's no accident. If you've been visualizing financial stability and suddenly receive a new opportunity or unexpected support, that's synchronicity in action. The universe responds to the energy you consistently emit. These signs are not rewards, they are reflections. Opportunity synchronicities arrive at the perfect moment when your preparation aligns with divine timing. Governed by the principles of polarity, rhythm, and gender, they appear when all polarities are in balance, cycles converge, and something new is ready to be birthed. Think of the person who has practiced music in solitude for years, only to be offered a life-changing performance opportunity by chance. That chance isn't random. It's rhythm. It's timing. It's readiness. These synchronicities call you forward and ask you to step fully into your purpose. In a world full of distractions, synchronicities are quiet whispers of alignment. They don't scream, they invite. Jung's spiritual wisdom teaches that if you slow down and pay attention, life will start to feel less chaotic and more coherent. The events you once labeled as coincidence begin to reveal a pattern, a rhythm, a deeper logic. By listening closely and moving with awareness, you come into relationship with the hidden intelligence guiding your life. And so, every warning, every sign of confirmation, every prophetic dream, every sudden opportunity, each is a sacred signal. Recognize them, honor them. They are the bridge between your conscious self and the unseen world that knows you better than you know yourself. This is not just spiritual awakening. This is remembering. To affirm your alignment with the universe's guidance, declare your awareness. Comment below. I trust the synchronicities to honor your path and encourage others to tune into the signs guiding their own spiritual growth. And so, as we journey through the mysterious dance of synchronicity, we begin to see that life is not a series of random events, but a tapestry woven with meaning, purpose, and spiritual connection. Carl Jung reminded us that these patterns are not coincidences, but signs, echoes of the soul, aligning with the greater universe. When you begin to pay attention, you'll realize that the universe has been speaking to you all along. If today's message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the powerful insights we have coming your way. Until next time, stay open, stay aligned, and trust the signs.